Good morning, everyone. I'm State Representative Natalie Mihalek, and I'm here with Sandy Feather with the Penn State Extension, and we're live from Boyce Navy Park in Upper St. Clair, and we wanted to talk a little bit this morning about ticks prevention and just a little more information. I know it's something that I'm curious about as a pet owner and a mom of small children who are oftentimes outside where ticks can be found. So I wanted to just ask Sandy a couple of questions. She's the expert in all things nature.
Oh boy.
So she's on the spot now. So Sandy, if you could just tell us a little bit. I know when I was a kid, we didn't really have ticks. It wasn't a concern.
I'm a lot older than you, and it really wasn't a big deal for us either. I would say in the last 12, 15 years, whether it's their population, changes in the weather where it seems to be more humid even through the winter months, and for all tick species, humidity is what they need to survive. So, things that we can do in our yards to keeping the grass mowed, and if your property abuts the woods, you want to make sure you keep the leaves raked up, clean out any brush piles. Things like that can go a long way to reducing the population of ticks in your yard. And of course, the one that we're all most concerned about is the black-legged tick, which is sometimes called the deer tick, which is kind of incorrect. But they're the ones that transmit Lyme disease. Now, there are other tick-borne diseases that are also quite serious, but Lyme, Pennsylvania currently leads the nation in confirmed cases of Lyme disease. In people, in our companion animals, it's kind of a big deal. So some other things that's recommended if you do have a yard like this that abuts the woods, you might hire a landscape contractor to come in and do tick treatments on your property, which is a spray of a material either bifenthrin or permethrin. And, they need to have the correct pesticide license to do it there. If they do lawn care, that does not cover the tick treatments because that's considered public health.
And is that safe for pets and kids?
It's not treating the whole yard. It would just be treating the perimeter.
Okay.
And they're miticides, insecticides, and you want to be careful with them, but they are labeled for that use and approved by the.
How effective is a treatment like that?
Pretty good. Well, the recommended times to treat are in the late spring and again in the fall.
Okay.
Because those materials are only going to last so long, and you know how the rain's been lately, so
Sure.
that probably shortens their lifespan a little bit. But some other things, and this is really going to bump some people out, one of the recommendations is to not feed the birds because, let me just go back here. Tick life cycle, we'll talk about the black-legged tick. They're laid as eggs in the spring. They'll hatch into a nymph, and they are more closely related to spiders than they are insects, so they're arachnids technically. So when they're adults, they're going to have 4 pairs of legs for a total of 8 legs, but when they first hatch out of that egg into the larval stage, they're only going to have 6 pairs of legs. And they're going to live through that season, the following spring, and of course they're going to attach themselves to a small animal, a bird, chipmunk, or mouse. And those are the animals that are reservoirs for the causal organism for Lyme disease. So if that animal's infected, that tick takes a blood meal. From then on, it's going to be infected. It lives in their gut, and it will live in that tick for the rest of its life. So then it's going to molt into the nymph in the spring, and it's going to go ahead and mature. And that's when they like to attach themselves to bigger animals, so people, deer, dogs, other creatures. And then that tick is going to lay eggs the following spring, and lots and lots of eggs, thousands of them, and then she'll die. Interestingly, only the females bite.
Oh, really?
They need to take a blood meal before they can produce eggs.
Okay.
Yeah, that's their creepy life cycle.
So if you are bitten, is it something that you would feel?
No.
No.
Generally not. Some people might develop some kind of hyperactive response to a tick bite, but for most people, it's totally painless. They don't typically itch, so you don't even know. And the other thing to know is the nymph, or the larval and nymph stages, they're like the size of a poppy seed. You really can barely see them. The adults are maybe the size of a sesame seed, maybe a little bit of a sesame seed. But one of the things when we talk about not feeding the birds, well, of course, bird seed drops on the ground, then you get the mice and the chipmunks and the little critters coming in for it, and they're the part of the life cycle that actually carries the causal organism for Lyme disease. So that's one way to, and if you are going to feed them, put it way out in your yard, like not where your family hangs out and plays all the time. Like don't put it next to the kids' swings. And the other thing too is bird feed attract deer. And while deer are not reservoirs for that causal organism, they do carry the adult reproductive stages of the ticks. So, there was a time when I think it was UConn had a publication all about dealing with ticks, and this statement is no longer in there because it's not really true, but there was a time when it was thought that the population of deer in your yard was going to determine your likelihood of getting Lyme disease. That thinking has changed by now. But, and other things, keeping that grass mowed, not planting real dense, like don't plant a meadow in your yard, because this is tick habitat, right here. This is tick habitat where you've got high vegetation. It's going to stay moist in there and be more humid in there. Ticks don't fly and they don't jump. They will get out on the end of the very tip of a plant, and it's called questing. And as soon as somebody brushes by there, that's when the tick is going to attach to them. And they go for the warmer, moister parts of your body, so up under your hairline, your armpits, your groin area. That's where they tend to gravitate to.
So if you do find a tick in one of those areas or wherever it might
You probably ought to visit your doctor. A lot of times they will put you on a prophylactic dose of doxycycline, usually either a big 1-day dose or maybe a 2 or 3 day dose.
Should you have the doctor remove the tick, or should you do it yourself?
If you're comfortable doing it yourself, it's fine. But the big thing you want to avoid is squishing the tick, because then it's going to empty its gut contents into you. And if it has Lyme, because a tick has to be on you for over 24 hours to actually transmit Lyme disease to you.
Now, is there anything I've read, in maybe their wives' tales about pouring alcohol or nail polish or some sort of
As far as I know,
chemical on
those
it?
are all wives' tales.
Okay. I thought so.
Physically, it would be so nice if you could dump something on there and they'd go, ooh, but unfortunately it doesn't work that way.
Okay.
And some things, when people are hiking in lovely places like this, we encourage people to stay in the center of the trail. Remember what I said about the ticks kind of perched out there on the edge of a plant, just waiting for something to brush by them. So by staying on the center of the trail, you reduce the chance of that happening. And one other thing, I know this looks a little goofy, but I will take looking goofy over having Lyme disease any day of the week. So when I do venture into the woods, which I actually try to do a lot when I'm not at work, and this is what I do when I work in my yard as well.
Well, maybe that's why ticks weren't a problem for me in the 80s, because I always pegged my pets.
Well, and the other thing I'll do is I will treat the tops of my shoes and my socks with an insecticide that contains DEET.
Okay.
And you can also treat clothing with sprays that contain permethrin. You don't want to spray that on your own skin. You can spray DEET on your skin, but you shouldn't spray permethrin on your skin. But you can put it on your clothing, and it will actually last through several wash cycles.
Do you spray it on the clothing before it's on your body?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let it dry. Let the spray dry before you put the clothes on. And you can actually buy permethrin-treated clothing nowadays.
Okay. So that's very helpful, Sandy. I appreciate the information this morning and hope you found it helpful. For more information, please go onto my website. We'll have some helpful links and tips for you on there as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.